This is a similar line of questions to the last situation. And if the court's position is still the same, what I would propose to do is simply make an offer of proof with the complete transcript. I mean, I don't think there's any circumstances where we would play the whole tape of that. And I think that the questions I would have to him would be specific to certain things that Mr. Edward Campbell said. So,
for the record, you know that I was provided by Mr. Durham earlier this week after we heard the statement of Mr. Dees and Mr. Pennington on a transcript of Edward Campbell transport from West Virginia. And it's having number of pages 159. Is that yours?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was looking at the one from what.
No, this is a transcript of Edward Campbell transport from West Virginia.
Yes, sir. That's the transcript we're talking about.
Okay. The record should reflect that I have read this transcript. It did take a while. But you may proceed. So we know where we are. You're going to mark this and at least this in the evidence of why there exists.
I think that's what we're trying to do it efficiently so that we don't take up more time.
You take up as much time as you need.
I know that.
Do you have any idea how long this may take? I'm thinking about if the jury's going to be, I can excuse them if they need to do something else. Well, let me put it this way. Have you got another witness?
We do, Your Honor.
How about if on this area, we leave this area and let them call somebody else while we've got the jury, and then at some time we can excuse the jury with maybe more convenient then and pursue it.
That's fair.
Your Honor, we have a tremendous amount of evidence here, but we also we would need to transition this evidence away, and we have a lot more coming, and so it might be a good afternoon to kind of deal with things like this as opposed to, I'm right on with that plan. I just think that we're going to have a big break, and I agree that we can go on with another witness and then undertake this issue later.
Okay.
You go to that one. We're just talking about the record, whether you had to ask some objection or question. The question is that she's going to object to, but I think you already did, so I think we're in that phase. I think that's fair enough. No, I don't want to hold the jury up right now.
Okay. Now, at this point, are you going to have another question?
Not at this time. When we want to make
Subject to recall.
Subject to recall.
Okay. When you bring the jury in, you say no further questions, subject to recall, and if you've got any other questions you may ask him, then he can step in and we will know that he's subject to recall. You bring it with you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is another one of those times we refused you from the courtroom because we didn't want you to know what we were doing. We don't expect speculate or worry that something may be done we will not hear. All the appropriate evidence we presented in front of you in this case. We want to know what we did for you will not hear. And as I told you earlier, if you ask me after the case is over, and I remember, I'll tell you. But otherwise, don't worry about it at all. Any further evidence at this time for this witness?
Your Honor, at this time, I don't have any other questions of Detective Hayes.
Any read record?
No, sir.
Thanks, sir. You stay in. Further evidence, sir?
Yes, sir, Your Honor. The state would call Craig Williams.
Your place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. Do you solemnly swear that evidence you should give the court and the jury should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Will you please state your name for the court?
Craig Williams,
How are you employed, sir?
Granville County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been employed with the Granville County Sheriff's Office?
19 years.
Has all of your law enforcement career been with the Granville County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
What is your position with the Granville County Sheriff's Office?
I'm a criminal investigator
How long have you been a criminal investigator?
since 2004.
Were you a deputy before that, a road patrol
Yes,
deputy?
regular patrol.
Were you on duty and working with the Granville County Sheriff's Office on January the 2nd of 2015?
Yes, I was.
Let me ask you, were you working at all on January the 1st of 2015?
I was not working on it first.
Were you called in at all on that day?
I was not.
On January the 2nd, did you respond to 8067 Highway 96 North?
I did.
And why did you go out there?
I went that morning. I knew that Detective McPhee and Detective Hayes had went to West Virginia, and I went out to try to assist any way that I could.
And when you got out there, what did you do?
I entered the crime scene, and I walked around the house and just walked around and just see what I could find.
So when you say you entered the crime scene, do you mean that you went inside of the house, or you're walking around the house, like walking the grounds?
I walked the grounds.
As you were walking the grounds there, did you see anything that caught your attention?
Yes. While I was walking, I walked behind one of the outbuildings, and I saw an arrow underneath the building. It was just underneath the building.
When you say arrow, what do you mean?
It was a crossbow arrow.
Did it have a tip on it?
It did. It had a tip on it, and a couple of the blades were broken off of it.
Describe, I guess I should ask you, describe what a crossbow arrow, what the tip looks like.
It's sharp at the end, and it has blades on, I think 4 blades on the tip, and 2 of the 4 was broken off.
So are these blades, are they like razor blades?
They're sharp, like razor blades.
When you saw this arrow, what did you do?
Once I saw him, I asked Detective Holden to take photos of him, and then once the photos were taken, I collected the arrow.
Were you wearing gloves?
I was.
Now, Detective Williams, do we have any of those photos of the arrow today?
No, we don't.
And why is that?
Detective Hayes and Detective McPhee had taken the camera with them to West Virginia, and Detective Holden used his iPad to take the photos. And sometime after that, his iPad got worked on by the IT guys, and the photos we couldn't retrieve the photos.
May I approach, Your Honor? Detective Williams, I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 271. Do you recognize this, sir?
Yes, I do.
And let me ask you this. Do you recognize this packaging?
Yes, I do.
And do you recognize, is there some writing on this packaging?
There is.
And what is it?
It's a label with the agency's name, item number, and suspect name, victim's name.
And who is this? Does it say it was recovered by?
By me.
And what's the description of what's in this container?
An arrow
And what date is it that it was recovered?
on the 2nd of January 2015.
And I'm going to retrieve, I don't know if the scissors will do this, but I'm going to ask you to open this. You're opening that, Detective Williams, is this the way in this tubing that you packaged the arrow?
Yes. As 271A. Do you recognize that? Yes.
And what is this?
This is the arrow that I found underneath our building.
And is this in substantially the same condition it was in when you found it there on January the 2nd of 2015?
Yes.
And as far as you know, well, let me ask you this. Are there additional markings and stickers on this particular piece of evidence?
Yes.
And did you put those there? Does it appear to be from the State Crime Lab?
Yes, it's from the State Crime Lab.
So other than when this went to the State Crime Lab, as far as you know, has this been in the care, custody, and control of the Granville County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
Your Honor, the state would move to admit State's Exhibit 271 and 271A. And Your Honor, I would ask that Detective Williams be allowed to hold this in front of the jury. You can just hold it up there. And you may have to walk across to everybody. Thank you. I don't have anything further.
Thank you. Good morning, Detective Williams.
Morning.
Now, did you generate a written report in this case?
Did I?
Yes.
No.
Did you take any handwritten notes?
No.
Is it your usual practice to conduct investigations in serious cases and not take any notes, not write any reports?
Right. It is.
That's usually what you
Yes.
do. You usually conduct an investigation, you don't write anything down?
No, I'm saying I usually do.
You usually
Yes.
do, but in this case you did not.
Yes.
And in this case you did not.
This case I did not.
Did you collect any other items when you were at the residence that day?
There were a couple of other items that were collected.
You did collect other items?
Yes.
Do you know what those were?
There was a ocean spray bottle and some tissue or something.
Do you think that's all that you collected that day?
Yes.
And before you collected those items, were those also photographed with
Yes.
the iPad that ultimately y'all were I guess y'all were unable to get the pictures off of it, or?
Right.
No further questions, thank you.
Briefly, Your Honor, Detective Williams, were you the lead detective in this case?
No, it wasn't.
And was your involvement limited to this just January the 2nd?
It was.
I don't have anything further.
Thanks, sir.
No, sir.
Thanks, sir. That's the clips, man. Brother Evans,
Yes, sir, Your Honor. The second call, Brian Minchie.
Here, place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right. Do you solemnly swear that evidence you give before the jury should be true, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Was it?
Will you please state your name for the court?
T.B. Minshew.
And how are you employed, sir?
I'm a deputy sheriff for the Graham County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been employed with the Granville County Sheriff's Office?
About 13 years.
Has your entire career in law enforcement been with the Granville County Sheriff's Office?
No, I've been a sworn law enforcement officer since 1997. I started my career with the Wake County Sheriff's Office as a deputy sheriff.
And what rank and position do you hold with the Granville County Sheriff's Office?
Currently, I'm serving as an investigator with the rank of corporal in investigations.
Were you an investigator with the Granville County Sheriff's Office on January the 3rd of 2015?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And were you called to 8067 Highway 96 North on that day?
Yes.
Was this the first day that you had been involved with the investigation of this particular case?
Yes, ma'am, that's right.
What time did you arrive there?
I believe it was approximately 8 a.m.
What did you do when you arrived?
So when we first arrived, the entire investigative division was present. Most of the investigators were present, I believe, aside from Steve Hayes and Doug McPhee, who were traveling. We developed a plan to search the property, the curtilage, and ultimately the house on the property.
And when you say that you were going to search the curtilage, what do you mean by that?
That's just the outline area of the existing property, not away from the home area.
So anything that wasn't the actual house?
Right.
And did you in fact search that area?
Yes.
How did you do that?
So initially, we made a grid search of the property.
When you say grid search, what do you mean?
That's a system where investigators would stand approximately shoulder width apart and move vertically and horizontally across the property, searching for evidence on the grounds that were relevant to the crime that occurred.
And how many, did you in fact do that on this day?
Yes, ma'am.
How many detectives or how many people did you have out there?
I don't know an exact number. Right offhand, I would estimate 8 to 10 people.
And how did you, in what direction did you go to do this grid search around the property there?
So we started in, if you were to imagine a square, we started in the corner and worked back and forth, like I said, vertically and horizontally across the property, surveying it.
So is that just on the property that is 8067 Highway 96 North?
That's correct.
Just the yard and around those buildings and all those things?
And we also searched the property across the street.
When you say across the street, is that across Highway 96 North?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes, ma'am.
Detective Minshew, I'm showing you what I've marked as State's Exhibits 272 through 281. If you'll take a look at each one of those. Do you recognize these, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
And what are they?
These are photographs taken at the crime scene.
And when you say crime scene, is that 8067 Highway 96 North?
Yes, ma'am.
Are there also pictures from across the street there?
Yes.
And do these fairly and accurately represent the way this property looked on January the 3rd of 2015?
It does.
And would these aid you in illustrating your testimony?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, the State would move to admit State's Exhibits 272 through 281 for illustrative purposes.
Yeah, Judge. No, sir. No, sir.
Permission to publish, Judge.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll draw your attention, Detective Minshew, to to the TV there, and I'm showing you first what's been marked as State's Exhibit 272. If you can tell the jury what this picture shows.
So if you were to stand on the front steps of the Faulkner home, this is a view directly across Highway 96 north to the property I mentioned, the vacant property that I mentioned earlier.
And these trees that appear to be in the front, are they right in front of the Faulkner home?
Yes, ma'am.
Describe that. Describe how that wood line looks there in front of their home.
So as you'll see, I believe in the following photographs, you have a series or hedgerow trees around the front of the home. It conceal it somewhat.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
The trees that are in front of the home somewhat conceal the home itself from the roadway, if you're looking.
And so if we were to zoom in on this small building here across the street, do you know what that is?
I believe it's a vacant store. As you can see, it's titled the Honey Hole on the sign.
State's number 273. What does this show?
This perspective is from the southeast corner of the Faulkner home in the front yard, looking at the residence itself and the trees I mentioned earlier.
And so to the right, not shown in this picture, is that Highway 96 North?
Yes, to the right is, I believe, the images will pan around to the right in the successive photos. Highway 96 runs to the right.
So State's Exhibit 274. Do you recognize that?
Yes, this picture is taken from that same perspective, just slightly to the right. This is more or less the front yard of 8067, Highway 96 North.
And from where this picture is taken, behind the photographer, is there a home on that side of the road, or is there anything over there?
Yes, the vacant house that I mentioned is on the right, as we'll continue to pan around to the right.
Across the street.
Across Highway 96 North.
State's 275.
And again, this is just slightly further right. You'll see in the far right corner, Highway 96 North.
State's 276.
This is the store that I mentioned, and also the vacant home on Highway 96 North, running through.
And State's 277.
Closer shot of the same properties I just described.
And to the right of this, that you see on the picture there, is that just more woods and more wooded area?
Yes.
Is there a house over there at all?
I don't recall what's to the right outside of the picture.
State's Exhibit 278. What is that?
A photo of the vacant house located directly across the street from the Faulkner property.
So that property looked that way on January 3rd?
Yes, ma'am.
Nobody was living there at all, were they?
Not to my knowledge.
State's 279.
This is the same vacant home taken from the front yard.
State's 280.
This picture is taken directly behind the home, just in the backyard.
281.
And another shot from the backyard, different angle.
These buildings that are back there, are they, is anybody living in those?
No,
Are they just barns or sheds that are run down?
storage buildings.
Thank you. Thank you, Detective. When you did this grid search that walked across the property and came over here across the street to look at this property, did you find anything or collect anything of note?
As I recall, nothing was recovered on January the 3rd from the ground search.
After you did the ground search, what happened next?
After that, we focused on the primary residence and searched it.
And how do you go about searching a house?
Well, the first step in searching any property would be, in a case like this, would be to obtain a search warrant, which we did in this case. You would start at the exterior of the home, surveying the outside, making observations about unique or unusual things. Moving inside the house, likewise, you would move in a methodical fashion, room to room, and that's what we did. This situation was a bit different in the sense that the dwelling was burned, so we simply used a flat-pointed shovel and sifted through the debris on the floor very slowly and methodically.
So when you say you were searching the house, you were also sort of digging through things in the house.
Yes, ma'am. Once you find evidence that you want to collect, you photograph it, collect it, label it, and enter it into evidence.
And out there on January the 3rd, was there a little bit different system than what you're used to when you are searching a home?
I would say it's different in the sense that because of the size of the property and just the sheer amount of evidence that we had to consider and sift through, we did have more staff on scene. Usually 2 to 3 detectives would process a typical scene.
And how many folks were out there on this day?
Like I said, I would estimate 8 to 10.
And when you collected evidence, were you necessarily the one who was bagging things up and writing on them?
Yes.
And once you did that, what would you do with that evidence?
So outside of the home, we had a series of tables set up where once evidence that we collected was gathered, I would take that outside to those tables. Our evidence technician, Detective Jessica Laws, was waiting where we turned that evidence over. We finished labeling everything, turned it over to her where she assumed custody of it.
When you began your search of this residence, in what area did you start?
We started at the front door and worked our way in.
Yes, ma'am.
To 305.
305. Okay.
Do you recognize those, sir?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And what are they?
These are photographs taken while we were processing the interior of the Faulkner home.
And this state's exhibit number 281, what is that?
This is a diagram of items collected during the search.
And did you produce that?
No, this is a product of the SBI.
And were they given measurements, or do you know how this was produced?
I know there was an arson investigator that came out and investigated the scene. I think we shared a sketch that we made, and this was produced by them using that information.
Did you make that sketch?
No.
Would this, the state's exhibit 281 fairly and accurately represent the scene on January the 3rd of 2015?
It does.
And would it aid you in illustrating your testimony?
Yes.
And I would ask you the same questions for state's exhibits 282 through 305. Do they fairly and accurately represent the way the property looked on January the 3rd of 2015?
Yes.
And would they aid you in illustrating your testimony?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, the state would move state's exhibits 281 through 305 into evidence.
Any objection? No, sir. No, ma'am.
Permission to publish, Your Honor? And Detective Minshew, I'm showing you what's already been marked and admitted into evidence as state's number 234. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And would that aid you in illustrating your testimony?
Yes.
I would draw your attention again to the screen. And I'm showing you states 234. If you can describe that and if you can just tell us what that is.
This is a diagram of the floor plan of the Faulkner home. It's accurate with the exception of a wall that was inserted erroneously in the hallway.
So explain what you mean by that.
There is no wall here. This is the hallway that leads from the dining room, and there's a wall that's been inserted. It's not actually there.
So that's an opening and there's no wall.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And state's exhibit number 281. Is this what you talked about the diagram that was produced by the arson investigator?
Yes.
And what does this show?
This demonstrates the items that were collected. We had a Harrington and Richardson 22 caliber revolver collected from the master bedroom, camp-style propane bottle, a blood sample, a blood-stained towel, and a plastic tote lid with a blood stain on it. In the living room hallway area, we had a camp-style lantern, a fuel can, and in the hallway, a camp-style propane bottle collected from that area.
So when you began to search, you say you went through the front door.
Yes.
Did you go through the living room first?
Yes.
And then did you make your way down the hallway?
Yes, ma'am.
I will show you what's been marked and admitted as states 282. What is this?
So this photo was taken if you were standing on the front steps looking into the home through the living room and dining room area. You can see the porch in the rear of the photo, the rear porch. This will be the hallway turning to the left, and just to the left here will be the master bedroom.
And is there any evidence in this picture that you collected?
Yes, this is the camp-style lantern.
And states exhibit 283. What is that?
This is a close-up photograph of the lantern.
Yes, ma'am.
Detective Minshew, I'm showing you what I've marked as State Exhibit 306. Do you recognize that?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And what is it?
This is the container holding the lantern demonstrated in the photo.
So the contents of this bag is what is here?
Yes,
And how do you know that?
because I
Did you mark it there on the bag?
did, January 3rd.
And did you seal that?
Jessica Hunsucker, Falls.
As far as you know, has this been in the care, custody, and control of the Granville County Sheriff's Office, except when it's noted that it went to the State Crime Lab?
Yes.
I would ask that you open this. Recognize the contents.
Yes.
And what is it
This is the lantern in the photo.
that you collected?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, the state would move to amend States 306 and 306A into evidence.
You object?
No, sir.
And I would just ask that Detective Minshew be able to hold it up in the bag and show it to the jury. It's quite messy.
Motion to dismiss.
And drawing your attention back to the screen, States Exhibit 284.
This is a fuel can that was recovered from the hallway.
So if we go back to States Exhibit 281, where is this depicted on the map? So as you're sort of making your way into the hallway.
Yes, ma'am.
And what drew your attention to this particular item?
Well, like I said earlier, you recognize a pattern of things that don't belong, a series of propane bottles, fuel cans, lanterns, an abundance of these items inside the home.
States Exhibit 285. Is this the same thing?
This is a different perspective of the same fuel can.
Showing you what I'm. May I approach, Your Honor? I'm showing you what I've marked as States Exhibit 307. What is this, Detective Minshew?
This is labeled as a can of camp fuel that was collected, located in the hallway.
And is that your handwriting?
Yes, it is.
And was that January 3rd of 2015?
Yes.
And did you place it in this evidence bag and seal it?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And did it go into the evidence room at the Granville County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
And except for these markings by the NC State Crime Lab, is it in substantially the same condition as it was when you sealed it up on that day?
Yes, it is.
I would ask that you open it. I'll mark this as 307A. Is this what you recovered on January the 3rd of 2015?
It is.
Your Honor, the state would move to admit states 307 and 307A into evidence.
You, Jason?
Yes, sir.
That's fine.
Your Honor, just permission to publish.
Yes, ma'am.
Drawing your attention to states 286. What is that?
This is a photograph of the hallway, and in the hallway here you can see a Campbell propane bottle that was collected.
And states 287.
And this is a close-up of the propane bottle.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Detective Minshew, I'm showing you what I've marked as State's Exhibit 308. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And how do you recognize it, sir?
This is the camp-style propane bottle that I bagged that day.
Is that your markings on it?
It is.
And did you seal the bag?
This was sealed by Detective Corley, who worked with me on scene.
So he was one of the 8 to 10 man team that was out there?
Yes, ma'am.
And is this in substantially the same condition that it was in when you collected it?
Yes.
I would ask you to open it.